Good morning. I'm going to tell you some stories, and we'll talk about half an hour in 3 sections. It's going to sound like the first third that I'm showing off, but I'm not, because this is a story about failure. It's important that it's a story about failure. I want us to get used to the idea of failure. Has anybody here read Don Quixote? Don Quixote, what's it in German? Cervantes. Yeah, the guy with the spear? I am Don Quixote. I've come to tell you that all windmills are giants. I'm from Leeds, which is in North England. I've never got a laugh at Don Quixote before, that's good. They said they wouldn't laugh except for out of embarrassment, but I've got one, so that counts. That's true. I'm from the north of England, in a place called Leeds, which I don't think is probably very different from this place. And I ran a theatre company called Slung Low, and for a long time, what we specialised in was making large-scale ceremonies, openings and closings of what we called people's theatre. So the performers mostly are not paid. They're all volunteers, and there's hundreds of them. And you would call us if you were opening or closing something important, but you couldn't afford Danny Boyle or the Olympic team. We're the second team, right? And that's good. It's good to be the second team. We knew where we were. And we were based in the north of England, and we would go wherever the job was. And we had some rules. We like to be governed by rules. And the first rule was that everyone got paid the same. If you were paid, everybody got paid the same. And the second was that you were paid the average wage of the nation, and no more. And the third rule is that you were on a buyout. So that means if the BBC paid for us to do a job and they gave us lots of money, we never kept that money. That money would always go back to the central pot. And we were, as much as you can be, flat. There was no hierarchy, as much as you can be. There had to be someone whose job it was to go to prison if it all went wrong. And that was me. And we've been around a long time. We've been going maybe 20 years. And after a while, we realized that we were a bit like the circus. We would go with our values and our ideals, and we would go to a place, and we would live there, like Liverpool. We would live there for 6 months, and we would do our work, and at the end of it, we would leave, and we would have made these really strong connections with the performers and the communities. But they were strong connections for 6 months, and then we would go, and we would never return. We've never been asked back anywhere. Because we suck up the energy. We suck up the money. It's expensive to make one of our shows. We turn up like the circus. We look after everybody and we're gone. Oh, hello. Did you pay more or less to sit up there? And we realized that we needed to be based somewhere. We needed a hill to die on. Everybody needs somewhere that is the last place, what we call the last redoubt, where you retreat to. And that place is Holbeck. Now, I wish we could all just go now to Holbeck, because it's the best place in the world. I love it. It's my heart. It's also the place in England which has the worst health outcomes for adults of anywhere. So if you know those two things about Holbeck, you know everything about Holbeck. It is the best place in the world with the best stories and the best people, and it has the worst health outcomes of any place in England. Anywhere else, Holbeck is number one. And I love it. And it was very important in the Industrial Revolution. It was very important for about 5 minutes. And then every single minute after that, it has been unimportant. And every bad thing that has happened to England, it happened to Holbeck a lot. So we had post-industrial decline after the war. We had Thatcher privatizing things. People got poorer and poorer and poorer and poorer. And we decided that that was where we would be based. And we decided it on a whim. It doesn't matter. Anywhere is the best place in the world if you give it enough attention. And we decided that we would give Holbeck all of our attention. So we moved in. We moved into some railway arches, and we set up a rehearsal room and a theatre company, and we had some more rules.
We like rules. And our rule was that everything was pay what you decide. Everything. Doesn't matter what it is, it's pay what you decide. Ticket for a show, pay what you decide. Borrow the van, pay what you decide. Hire me to come and speak to your company about whatever you want, pay what you decide. And we all just decided that we would ask the people what they wanted to see, and whatever they said, we would do it. It wasn't the only thing we would do. We would do some things that I wanted to do, but we would go out into the community, we would stand in markets and say, what do you want? And whatever you said, I did. I want a musical, fine. I want a bouncy castle for my kids, fine. I want a comedy about the Bible. Okay, fine. I didn't know why. Turned out to be very popular. What do I know? So these were our rules to set up this space. Now, this space was the normal type of grungy art space. It was a railway arch, and it was all old furniture and everything else. And it was pay what you decide. And I said, this is going to be the most popular thing in the world. It's going to be brilliant. And no one came. So we went to the market, and we said, why aren't you coming to this theatre? And they said, it doesn't look like you care very much. Wow, I learned something that day. So this place, it looks like some people care a lot, right? It's beautiful. It's expensive, but it's beautiful. But in England, the arts, they like to pretend not to be beautiful and expensive. And that's fine. As long as you love the arts, that's quite nice. But if you've never been to the theatre and it looks like it's quite old and tatty, you don't want to go. I learned something that day. I was like, oh, hang on. We were always in the newspapers. People were always writing about how good we were. But nobody who lived in Holbeck wanted to come. So far, so good. The newspapers liked us, but our local neighbours didn't like very much. And then one day, we went to rehearse at the Working Men's Club. Do you know what a Working Men's Club is? No? Okay. So it's a place that is owned by the people. They pay a share. And originally, in the Victorian times, it was for educating. It was for playing games. It was where working men, which is a problem, but still Victorians, working men could go to learn about new things. And it would be owned by the people. And it was the only place you could go where you weren't a customer, because you were a member. And then as things developed in the 20th century, they became places where people went to drink, which is a problem, because what would happen is the men would get paid, and they would go and spend all their money on beer. And there would be nothing for anything else. And we decided that if the men were buying the beer in bars that they owned, that actually that money could then go back into the community. Now, that is a very problematic idea, but it's an idea, right? And they were very successful until after, until the last 30 years. And then people stopped drinking as much. People stopped drinking out as much. They started drinking at home, and you couldn't smoke. And because of those three things, these clubs tended to fall into decline, to ruin. And the oldest working men's club in Britain is called the Holbeck, and it's in Holbeck. Very convenient. And it was in a bad state. It was being run by volunteers, and it didn't have any money. And I was rehearsing a show there because our railway arches kept raining inside, and it wasn't nice. So I went to rehearse there, and they're the sort of place that they leave all the money, that all their bank statements were all out on the tables. And we saw that they owed a lot of money. They owed maybe £100,000. And we'd just been paid to do a job, £100,000. Now, do you remember our rules? We're not allowed to keep that money. If the BBC pay me £100,000 to direct a piece of television, I can't keep it. It's the rules. So we had this money, and we didn't know what to do with it. So we decided that we would make the Working Men's Club an offer. And they would, I was meant to press a button, wasn't I? Don't worry, you've not missed anything. We would make an offer, and the offer was that we would pay off all their debt. We'd make them debt-free, and we would then move in as managers for free, and we would run the pub. And in order to protect them, we would have a set of rules, because we like rules, right? Set of rules where we couldn't change things. We couldn't change the price of the beer unless all the members voted. And we couldn't change the opening times unless all the members voted. And we would look downstairs in this club. Downstairs is this beautiful old bar and a snooker room where we sat. And upstairs, there is an old room that was completely abandoned, a 250-seater cabaret space. Beautiful. And we would take over this place and we would run it for the community under their leadership. And the only thing we asked for was that apart from the bar, we could do whatever else we wanted with the rest of the building. And we came up with a rule. And the rule was everybody gets what they want. So if you come to me and you say, I want to have a prayer group there. Yes. I want to learn English as a second language. Yes. I want to practice my brass band. Yes. Everybody gets what they want. And the only other rule was nobody gets to stop other people getting what they want. Now the members, and we would pay off the debts. And then the other thing was we would guarantee them against loss. They would never lose money ever again, because if they ever did, when we got to the end of the year, we would pay off all their debts. Pretty good rule, pretty good deal, right? They said no. Twice. Until it was explained to them that they were going bankrupt and they would be closed within 6 months, and this was the only deal on the table. And so they voted, and they voted yes. And so we moved in, and we transformed it. We cleaned it, we polished it, we gave it our attention. And it was very successful. I'm not bragging, it was. Can I, oh, hang on, there we go, do that. Ooh, I've broken it. Ah, there we go. So this is the upstairs room. It's not fancy, but it was full. This was the first cabaret. Now, you're allowed 250 people according to the council. There's 350 in that room. It was very hot. But that's a famous drag queen. I don't know what's German for drag queen? I fucking love that. And so we ran it as a downstairs, the bar, upstairs, this pay what you decide theatre, where we got the best Opera North, the big orchestra there. They came and played. Rule was always the same. The show was pay what you decide, and at the end of it, all the money taken in the bucket was given to the artists, whoever the artists were. Downstairs, the beer was served, the beer was kept the same prices. We couldn't put the prices up. And at the end of the year, if they made a loss, we paid off the loss. And for 2 years it worked. It was very good. It was a brilliant building. It was old. It was full of asbestos. It was difficult, but it was brilliant. There was a flat upstairs that was a sort of secret. So when the local women ran away from their husbands because they were violent, they would go and hide in the flat upstairs. I liked that. That's the best thing about that. But it had this amazing theatre. This place, people had performed there for 100 years. Famous comedians had been there before they were famous, and we were taking it back there. It was a useful place. In this community, we had Africans and Asians and people from every part of the world, and everybody came to do their ceremonies here because everybody was welcome. And then COVID hit. And all the things we've been doing, we couldn't do them anymore. We had to shut. But we decided that we would stay because we realized that if we ran away and went home, and because I would still get paid, the government would still pay me, we would never be able to come back. Because if we abandoned our community in that moment, our community that didn't have money, that were on 0-hour contracts, they only had money for a week, and then they started to become hungry. We realized that if we did that, we would never come back, and everything we'd built would be gone. And so, again, we made a decision. We always make decisions. We get together as a team and we talk until we decide what to do, and we decided that we would stay, and we sent a letter to the nearest 2,000 houses. And the letter said, "We are your theatre company. We are here. We have money, we have a van, and we're young enough to not be as scared as we might be. If you need something, let us know what you need." And at first the phone rang. This is the mistake. I put my own phone number on that letter. That was a mistake. The phone rings, and at first people just say, "I'm just ringing to make sure it's real." And I said, "It's real." And then the next was like, "Well, I can't leave the house because I'm old and I'm worried about COVID. Can you walk my dog?" And we can walk your dog. And then we started to get phone calls from people elsewhere saying, "I would normally come and change my bedding, the bed sheets, for my mum or my father, but I can't move because of the law. Could you go and change my mother's bed sheets?" Yeah, I can, right? I can. It's easy. It's easy to do that. change bed sheets, I've got a washing machine. It doesn't take, 2 hours? And then people would ring and say, I'm a cleaner, and I've not been able to work for 2 weeks because of the lockdown. I have no money. I was like, okay. We said, can you help? Well, yeah, I can, can't I? I can help. I've got money. Oh, can you get me food? Yeah, I can get you food. Easy. And then it started to accelerate. Because it turns out, if you say to people, we will do whatever you want because we are in service to you, they will ask you to do things. It's an amazing problem to have. The phone never stopped ringing. And we just did everything everyone asked us, we did. None of it was hard. None of it was complicated. Nearly all of it wasn't dangerous. It just took some energy and a little bit of money. And after about 3 weeks of this, the council ring and go, what are you doing? I'm in service. I'm in service to my community. I've always been in service to my community. It's one of our rules. I said, oh, great, okay. Can you keep doing it? I was like, yeah, if you like. Good, then we give you permission. Thanks for the permission. If you give me permission, do you also give me money? What? Well, you've given me permission, can I have some money, please? Oh, okay, yeah, you can have some money. So they gave us some money, and it was fine. And then when the people, and it was mostly young mums, would ring and say, my children are hungry, we'd say, what do they like to eat? And they'd say fish fingers and chips. So we go to the shop, and we'd take the council's money, and we'd buy fish fingers and chips. And then we would take it back. We did that for 2 years, nearly. After a little while, it settled down. People didn't want their beds changing anymore. Like, the rules lessened, they got on with it. But what they always wanted was food. They were hungry. And they were hungry for lots of reasons. And we haven't got time to go into those reasons, but they were hungry not because they were lazy, not because they were drunk, not because they were stupid. They were hungry because of the way our society works. And we can argue all day long about whose fault that is and what the solution to it is, but all of us are clever enough to know that our society requires us and people to be at the bottom of the pile, and just the system naturally just cares for them less. We have a thing in Britain called the hostile environment, which is if you come to Britain looking for asylum, we will make it as difficult as possible for you to have connections with anyone, so that when it's time to deport you, nobody knows you and nobody likes you. And one of the places that we send people for 4 months and then move them is Holbeck. Now, Holbeck, we already know, worst outcomes of any poorest place. And when you go there, people who need the most amount of help, people who don't speak English, people who've just arrived in the country, people who don't own any furniture, who don't have any books, don't have any toys, don't have any clothes, didn't have a bag full of food, are sent to the place that is already dealing with all of those problems. So my community was hungry, not because they were stupid or lazy or drunk. They were hungry because we made them hungry. It is an outcome of the system. So I was very happy taking the council's money and buying fish fingers and chips. Very happy. It's a very good use of my time if I'm not allowed to make theatre. And then we opened back up, and you were allowed to make theatre again, outside, in drive-thrus and cinemas and in car parks, and we did all of that. And we would make these plays, because that's our job, to be in service to our community. And we said, well, maybe we should stop doing the food thing then, because we've got the play thing coming. We'll do the theatre, we won't do the food anymore. And we had a chat, and we said, well, hang on. Imagine, because we're artists and that's our job, to imagine. Imagine there is a woman or a man with 3 children in a house with 2 rooms, just there. The club's here, just there. They can see us. And we're going to put on a big cabaret. And we'll do it in the car park so it's safe, and it'll be free. It'll be pay what you decide. But you're that woman, and you don't know how to feed your children tonight. You're worried. That's actually what you're thinking about. Not anything else, just literally, where do I get the food for my children? Do I steal it, or do I have any friends I could ask for it? Is there anything in the cupboard? Should I send the children to steal it? What should I do so they can eat? And then I come along, hello, I'm a theatre director. We're putting on a cabaret in the car park. It's free. Would you like to come? What a dickhead. So we realized that we couldn't do this whilst our community was still hungry. So we kept going. And we kept going, as I say, until 2 years. We did, I think it's 18,000 food parcels. I forget the numbers now, it's a little while ago. But this is the food. We never ran out of food and we never ran out of money. Not once. We said very clearly, we were what they called a non-means tested self-referral food bank, which means if you asked for food, you got it. In other food banks, you have to demonstrate your poverty. You have to tell me a sad little story and cry. And I hated that. I said, please don't do that. You're just going to get food. Now, of the 5,000 people we delivered food to, maybe 20 were faking and had money, but were just like, this guy's bringing me free bread. I do not care about that 20. That 20 is how I know it worked. I never ran out of food. Companies would find out and say, Leeds United Football Club would ring and say, oh, I've got 17,000 litres of milk that we bought by accident. Would you? Yes, I would like it. Burger King would ring and say, I've got 40,000 burgers. Can you do anything where I can do something with them? Every single day, food would arrive. It was easy. There is food everywhere. Everywhere. Every restaurant, every takeaway, every cafe throws away food at the end of the day on a point of principle as part of their business. And yet my community were going hungry, and I was like, we're not having it. Now, because I look like this and I sound like this, I could ring them up and say, I think I'll have your food. And they'd be like, of course you can have your food, Alan. Can we take a picture so we can put it on Twitter? But if my community had gone and asked for the food, they would have been turned away. When we talk about cultural capital, that's cultural capital. I can get a lorry, but the guy that lives next to me can't get a burger. And the difference is I look and sound like this, right? So we kept going. It went very well. It went so well that there was queues. We ended up doing 200 food parcels a day. It's a great problem to have. I never ran out of food. I never ran out of money. I never ran out of clients either. And then eventually you have to change. You have to change because after 2 years you've spent all your money and you've done all your energy, and actually at some point you realize that there are food banks, not theatre companies, and we had a choice. And so the hardest thing I've ever done in all of my life, and I've done some stuff, is closing a food bank takes forever. It took 12 hours to open it, and it took nearly 7 months to close it. It was painful. It was constant storytelling. It was a complete sense of betrayal. It was a defeat. It was okay. Because we were defeated, because there were still people hungry. We didn't solve hunger. But for the time we ran a food bank, nobody in Holbeck went hungry. That's a hell of a thing. And the fact that we stopped doing it does not change that. But stop doing it we must, because we needed to concentrate on something else. When we were useful and kind, that was good. Everybody got what they wanted. We ran a club. It was nice. But we were the only people in Holbeck whose job it was to look at awe and wonder. There were other people who, the church, they were being useful and kind. The police, being useful, sometimes kind. The council, useful and kind. The other food bank, useful-ish, kind-ish. Awe and wonder, that's a privilege. The UK government give us £250,000 every year to do what we do, and we're the only people who had the remit to do whatever we wanted. To fill the hearts of our people and to lift their eyes up to the sky, that was our job, and we were the only people with that job. Realizing this was the second hardest thing I've ever had to do. Because when you're a theatre director, I don't know what it's like being a community musician. Maybe it's different, but when you're a theatre director, mostly people don't care. Few people care a lot, but mostly people are like, it's theatre, it's okay. When you run a food bank in a community centre, people write you letters saying, you saved my life. They write you letters saying, I can't believe you did this. God bless you. Nobody blesses a theatre director. It's like a drug. Right? It's like a drug. Getting off that drug's really hard. But we realized, because of our rules, we're in service. We're the only people who could do awe and wonder. And at the same time, the position in the club became impossible. So it's owned by the members. And the members didn't like gay people, and they didn't like black people. And no amount of arguing with them. I did it for 5 years. I would go and argue with them. And I'd stand there and say, that's not good enough. Behave better. If you do that again, I will punish you like I was their father. Like I was the morality police. These old men in their 70s, spewing their nonsense out of their drunken mouths for 5 years. And after 5 years, we realized we have our rules, right? Everybody gets what they want, and nobody gets to stop other people getting what they want. And these people were stopping other people getting what they want. So we went to the members again and said, you voted us in, you're going to vote us out now. And they were like, what? And the members, a small group of members, they hated us. Me with my liberal sort of camp politics. And I said, you're going to vote me out. And do you know what? They didn't. They were like, no, you can't go. I'm like, I can go, I'm going to go. And we argued, and then finally they voted us out. And they couldn't believe that we would ever go anywhere else. Because the problem with the members of the club, that little committee, was they had no imagination. And as an artist, the only thing you've got is imagination. And so we looked around Holbeck, because we're still in, it didn't change. The game didn't change. The victory wasn't running the club. The victory was being in service to our community. So there's this massive warehouse, empty, doing nothing, 600 meters down the road, 20 meters from the local primary school. The only problem is, when you look at it, it doesn't look like much, does it? It took 3 days to rip the floor out, and another 3 weeks to tidy it up and lay another floor. And when we were finished, we had a 1,000-seater warehouse theatre space and a 300-seater cabaret space. Pay what you decide. Everybody gets what they want. Nobody gets to stop other people want. We just didn't have any resident racists. First thing we did was we organised an opera. I'd never made an opera before. I'd always been a bit snotty about opera. It's like reversal snobbery. I'd always been like, I don't do opera. Opera's for fancy people. I did an opera. I did, oh shit, what's it called? Noah's Flood. Who's it by? English composer. Benjamin Britten, thank you. And the reason why I did Noah's Flood was firstly an orchestra said they'd do it. That's helpful. But we did it with the local primary school. And I remember Radio 3, which is like the fancy radio station in Britain, came to interview us, and they said, why are you doing an opera here in Holbeck? That school next door, it speaks 64 different languages. The children come from all around the world. What is the point of doing this Western canon opera with its church music? What connection could it possibly have? And I said, look at the children. This is a story about getting in a boat because the land is too terrifying. You tell me these children who've come from Syria, who've come from Sudan, who've come from Afghanistan, you're telling me these children don't understand the meaning of Noah's flood. They don't understand the meaning of what it is to get in a boat, hoping that somewhere there's dry land for you. This is the audience. We could seat 500, but 750 came. It was very hot. These are the people of Holbeck. They're good people. They'd never seen an opera before. And they'd never seen their children in an opera before. They'd never even seen an orchestra before. There's 84, you can't quite see it. I prefer their faces. There's an 84-piece orchestra just somewhere over there. Awe and wonder. At the end of this show, we put all the children on buses, and we took them to the Manchester International Festival, the fanciest festival in all of England. It's very fancy. And they went into this big, huge arena, and they played their opera to an audience of 1,500 people. And Radio 3. If you were here now, they'd tell you the best thing about the day was the sandwiches. Awe and wonder. This is what it looks like now. This is a community meal. These children here, you can just see them, they're the children who were in the opera. They're our board. They program us. If they ask us to do something, we do it. They have never had a bad idea. They've had lots of ideas where I've gone, oh, Jesus. Never a bad idea. They wanted a festival on kindness. And I was like, why? But I'm not allowed to ask why, so we did it. Very successful. They wanted an orchestra to come and play really random contemporary classical music, very popular. And then this was their community meal. They wanted to bring together all the different people in the community who they felt made the community but were not praised. And then we would have a dinner for them and we would serve them. That's the outside of the building now. If you can imagine, before we moved in, it was full of barbed wire. And when we moved in, this is the route that everybody takes to school. The children, the school is just here. And the floor was full of needles and condoms and stuff. And so we said to the children, what would you like on the wall? We'll hire the best graffiti artist in Britain to do it. And they drew this. They said they wanted a pink moon and a child writing a story and the white rose of Yorkshire and an owl for Leeds. And then just in the corner you see the scroll and it says IIW, and that's the Imaginative Intelligence Warriors. That's the name of our board. They named themselves. I wanted them to be called the Arts Army, and they said no. I'm no longer at Slung Low. I'm their chair. They're run by the brilliant producer who did all of this, a woman called Joanna. And we talk now about being in a constant fighting withdrawal. We rushed forward in service to our community. And the pinnacle was when we were open as a full-time food bank, making shows outside in the car park, letting anyone who needed the space use it, housing a woman running away from her abusive husband upstairs in the flat. That's it. That's the moment. It was one night of pure perfection, where strategy meets tactics meets reality. And since then, from that perfection, we have been in a constant withdrawal. We've closed the food bank, we've moved out the club. I'm not there anymore. That is the order of things. If we aim for permanence, we bake into our system the failings that we're attempting to overcome. I can see some of you now going, yep. We know this, right? It's just self-evident. It's just the natural philosophical argument gets us to that point that if we become the stasis, if we become the infrastructure, that we become the problem because our communities are constantly changing and our art is constantly changing because we're constantly imagining. The cost of that is it's bloody exhausting. We've had 5 offices in 6 years. It's exhausting. You find yourself not doing nice things because you're like, how long are we really going to be here for? You're in constant. That is the cost of being in service. That is not a failure. It's just a strategic withdrawal, a constant fighting withdrawal. There's nothing wrong with a fighting withdrawal. You're moving to other land. You're moving to other territory where you can reposition, imagine anew, find out what your communities need, and go again. But you will never go forever. Now, I don't know what it's like in Germany, but in Britain, we are constantly looking for the permanent. My funders constantly say, but what will you do in 10 years' time? And I'm like, I have no idea. It might be dead. I don't know. But I know that while we were a food bank, no one went hungry. While we were at the club, nobody was turned away. And now we're in this warehouse. Every single week, in one way or another, people come and have their eyes drawn to the sky in new ways every single week. That lasts only as long as it lasts is not a failure. It's the cost of success. I'm being told I've got to stop now. Thanks very much for your patience.